Let me tell you something today. He had everything going for him. Respected job, growing reputation, a promising career ahead. But during a tense boardroom meeting, when a colleague subtly questioned his decision-making, he snapped. In a matter of seconds, a few emotionally charged words, spoken in defense and pride, spiraled into a shouting match. That moment, fueled by ego and the need to set things straight, cost him the trust of the room. Promotions slowed. His name wasn't floated in leadership discussions anymore. Now contrast that with another scene. A woman in a similar position, also under pressure, facing indirect criticism in a team meeting. Instead of firing back, she listened calmly, said nothing, and let the silence speak for her confidence. Days later, others spoke on her behalf. Her restraint wasn't seen as weakness. It was interpreted as composure, emotional intelligence, and strength. Silence, when chosen consciously, isn't passive. It's one of the most strategic tools you can ever wield. In this video, we're diving into 5 moments in life when silence isn't just a good idea, it's necessary. From heated arguments to high-stakes negotiations, these are the times when your silence will speak louder, protect your peace, and elevate your power. Let's dive in. Number 1. When you're being insulted or provoked. Imagine you're standing in a crowded office break room. Tensions are already high because of a missed deadline, and one of your colleagues, someone who's always been passive-aggressive, decides today is the day to make you the target. In front of others, they say with a mocking tone, maybe if someone paid more attention instead of taking so many coffee breaks, we wouldn't be behind schedule. All eyes shift toward you. You feel the heat rising in your chest, your hands begin to clench, and your mind races for the perfect comeback. But instead of giving in, you take a breath. You look at them, expression neutral, and say nothing. The room waits for the explosion, but it never comes, just silence. And that silence, it shifts the dynamic completely. When someone tries to provoke you, their goal is often control. They want to manipulate your emotional state, steer your reactions, and get you to play a game where they've already set the rules. The moment you react, especially with anger or defensiveness, you've stepped onto their turf. You've validated their tactic. But silence breaks that pattern. It creates discomfort for the provocateur because it denies them the emotional engagement they're seeking. They're left hanging, their words echoing in the air, while your silence asserts an unshakable calm. In psychology, this is known as the power of non-reactivity, the ability to observe without impulsively responding. It's not about bottling up emotion, but about mastering it. Non-reactivity is a strength rooted in mindfulness. It allows you to pause, assess, and choose your response, or lack thereof, with intention. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. In family arguments, there's often someone who knows exactly which buttons to push, a sibling who revisits old wounds, or a parent who uses guilt as a weapon. The natural impulse is to defend yourself, to argue, to explain, but silence in these moments can create a powerful boundary. It says, I see what you're doing, but I'm not giving it power. Over time, this kind of silence becomes a shield, not one of avoidance, but of strength. It communicates that you refuse to engage in toxic dynamics on social media. This is even more apparent. The internet thrives on reaction. Trolls, haters, and even acquaintances who post veiled insults depend on your need to respond. They throw bait, and the more emotionally reactive you are, the more fuel you give them. But choosing not to reply, not to explain yourself to people who've already decided to misunderstand you, is a form of liberation. It tells the world, and more importantly, yourself, that your peace isn't up for grabs. Silence in this context becomes a form of digital self-control. There's also an element of power in the unknown. When you stay silent, others are forced to sit with their own words. They start to wonder, did they hit a nerve? Are you unbothered? Are you planning a calculated response later? That uncertainty is often more intimidating than any outburst could ever be. It turns the tables. Now they're the ones off balance, not you. But let's be clear. Silence isn't about cowardice or passivity. It's not about letting people walk all over you. It's about timing and intention. Sometimes, silence is the pause before a wiser, more strategic response. Other times, it's the complete end of engagement with someone who doesn't deserve your energy. Either way, the silence is yours, and it's deliberate. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, whether it's in a meeting, at home, or online, consider this: not every comment deserves a response. Not every insult requires your voice. Sometimes, your greatest strength is in what you choose not to say. Because when you remain silent in the face of provocation, you don't just protect your peace, you reclaim your power. Number 2, during negotiations. Picture this. You're sitting across from a hiring manager after a grueling series of interviews. They've just told you, "We're really impressed, and we'd love to bring you on board." The starting salary is $85,000. Most people, especially when anxious or eager to please, would immediately respond with enthusiasm or start negotiating right away. "Thank you, that sounds good," or "Can we make it $90,000? But instead, you simply nod once, calmly, and say nothing. 5 seconds pass, then 10. The room gets a little heavier. The hiring manager shifts in their seat. The silence stretches. Then, almost predictably, they add, "Of course, there may be some flexibility. We might be able to go up to $90,000 or include a signing bonus." This is the power of silence in negotiation. It unsettles, it creates pressure, and it forces the other party to fill the gap, often to your advantage. Silence is a subtle but potent tactic because humans are naturally uncomfortable with empty space, especially in high-stakes conversations. In negotiations, this discomfort leads people to talk more than they should, sometimes revealing information or offering better terms just to break the silence. Seasoned negotiators understand this psychological pressure and use it to their benefit. It's called the silence after the offer. The idea is simple: when someone makes you an offer, you say nothing. You don't nod, you don't smile, you don't react, you just sit with it. The silence suggests consideration, seriousness, and even slight dissatisfaction, all without uttering a word. And that moment of tension often prompts the other side to speak first and better their position. Consider the legendary Steve Jobs. In negotiations, he was famously terse. When Apple was dealing with suppliers, Jobs would often sit silently after hearing pricing proposals. He'd make intense eye contact, offer no feedback, and let the silence linger. The supplier, desperate for validation or feedback, would often lower their price or throw in additional services, trying to fill the void. Jobs knew that silence was unnerving, and he weaponized that discomfort. His silence wasn't passive. It was calculated, intentional, and most importantly, powerful. Now contrast that with the amateur negotiator, the person who fills every pause with nervous chatter, justifying their request, downplaying their value, or talking themselves into worse terms. This kind of verbal clutter signals insecurity. It gives the other party clues about what you're willing to settle for, even if you didn't mean to share that information. Silence, on the other hand, projects confidence. It signals that you know your worth, and you're not in a rush to concede. And that aura of control shifts the balance of power in your favor. Silence also gives you time to think, to process, and to assess the offer without being emotionally hijacked. When negotiations involve money, ego, or risk, emotions run high. Saying something too quickly, whether out of excitement or pressure, can lead to regret. But silence acts as a buffer. It keeps you in control of the tempo. You set the rhythm of the conversation, not the other person. In business deals, silence can be just as effective. Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors of all time, is known for his calm demeanor during acquisitions. His ability to sit through offers or pitches without reacting often leads sellers to second-guess themselves, revealing more than intended or agreeing to more favorable terms, just to break the perceived tension. Buffett doesn't rush. He lets silence work for him, creating an environment where the other party feels compelled to give more. So the next time you find yourself in a negotiation, whether you're discussing a salary, buying a car, or closing a deal, remember that your words are powerful, but your silence might be even more so. Let the silence sit. Let it stretch. Let the other person squirm a little, because in that uncomfortable quiet, your leverage grows. And sometimes the best move isn't to speak, it's to wait. Number 3. When you're angry or emotional, it's late at night and a couple is arguing in their living room. Tension that had been quietly building for weeks finally erupts. One partner accuses the other of being emotionally distant. The words sting, and in that flash of anger, the other fires back with a cruel comment that's been bottled up, something deeply personal, said with the intent to wound. Silence was an option, but the heat of the moment won, and now, even after the fight cools, those words hang in the air like smoke after a fire. Apologies may come, but trust has already taken a hit. Now rewind that scene. Same tension, same accusation, same sting, but this time when the angry words rise up, the person doesn't respond. They take a breath. They walk out of the room. They let the silence carry the weight of their restraint. Later, when emotions settle, they return and speak. Not from rage, but from clarity. This time, the conversation heals instead of hurts. Anger is a normal human response. But when we let it drive our actions without pause, we risk doing damage that can't be undone. Neuroscience has a name for this: the amygdala hijack. The amygdala is the part of the brain responsible for processing threats and triggering our fight or flight response. When you feel attacked or overwhelmed, the amygdala takes over, flooding your body with adrenaline and cortisol, preparing you to react, not to reason. In those moments, your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, is effectively shut out. That's why people say things they don't mean in the heat of the moment, and why those things often feel impossible to take back. Silence in that moment acts as a circuit breaker. It interrupts the surge. It gives your mind space to catch up with your emotions. In the digital age, this lesson is more important than ever. Online debates, especially on social media, are a breeding ground for instant reactions. One controversial comment can spiral into a war of words in seconds. But before you clap back or type that scathing reply, consider what silence could save. You don't have to engage every time you're provoked. Sometimes, not responding isn't avoidance, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that temporary satisfaction from winning the moment often leads to long-term regret. Choosing silence in emotional moments doesn't mean you suppress how you feel. It means you manage the timing of your expression. It means giving yourself the grace to calm down, process, and respond from a place of intention rather than instinct. The space between stimulus and response is where maturity lives. Simple practices like walking away from the situation, taking slow, deep breaths, or even saying aloud, "I need a minute," can buy you that space. In that silence, you reclaim your agency. You give yourself time to think about what you really want, to prove a point, or to protect a relationship, to lash out, or to find a resolution. There's immense power in being the person who doesn't lose control when everything around you is trying to trigger it. The one who, in the heat of conflict, can stay grounded while others unravel. That kind of silence doesn't come from weakness. It comes from strength. The strength to pause, to withhold, to master the moment rather than be mastered by it. So whether it's in a personal fight, a workplace confrontation, or a digital dispute, remember this: reacting in anger might give you the last word, but staying silent in the moment could give you the last laugh. Because the words you don't say in anger are the ones you'll never have to apologize for. Number 4. When others are gossiping, it starts innocently enough. You're in the office kitchen pouring a cup of coffee, and 2 coworkers are chatting nearby. One leans in and says, "Did you hear what happened to Julia in accounting?" There's a laugh, a smirk, a raised eyebrow. The story spills out. Personal, exaggerated, and most of all, irrelevant to the work at hand. You're standing there, caught in the current of it, unsure whether to walk away or chime in. Maybe you even add a light comment just to fit in, but now your silence or your words become part of the chain. That's how gossip spreads, not always through malice, but through passivity, curiosity, or the desire to belong. And yet, what few realize in the moment is that every time you engage in gossip, you're not just talking about someone else. You're quietly reshaping how others see you. Gossip is seductive because it gives us a false sense of power and connection. It creates a shared secret, a moment of bonding at someone else's expense. In social circles or workplaces, this behavior can feel like currency. The more you know, the more you're in. But the cost is far greater than most realize. When you're seen as someone who talks about others, people start to wonder what you say when they're not around. Trust begins to erode, and integrity, which takes years to build, can be lost in a single careless conversation. On the surface, gossip looks harmless, but underneath, it chips away at the culture of respect and safety in any environment. Now imagine a different scenario. The same story starts to brew, the same whispers reach your ears, but this time you stay silent. You don't laugh, you don't nod in agreement, you don't add fuel to the fire. Your expression remains neutral. Or maybe you politely excuse yourself from the conversation altogether. In that silence, something powerful happens. You're making a statement, not a loud one, but a clear one. You're not part of that game. Others notice, maybe not immediately, but over time, they come to see you differently, as someone who can be trusted, someone who respects boundaries, someone who understands that what's said behind closed doors has a way of finding its way out. Silence in the face of gossip doesn't mean you agree with what's being said. It means you're choosing not to validate it. You're choosing not to contribute to the culture of tearing others down. That silence becomes a protective wall around your own integrity. And in professional settings, that integrity is everything. Promotions, partnerships, and leadership roles often go not just to the most talented, but to those who are seen as emotionally mature and trustworthy. Being the person who doesn't participate in gossip sends a quiet but unmistakable signal that you operate on a higher standard. Outside of work, in social settings, gossip can be even more tempting. The stories are juicier, the stakes feel lower, and the line between concern and judgment often blurs. But even among friends, silence can be a powerful tool. When someone begins to speak ill of another friend, and you choose not to pile on, you're showing loyalty, not just to the absent person, but to the values you stand by. Over time, people remember that. They may not say it aloud, but they start to view you as a safe space. And in a world full of noise and opinion, being that kind of person is rare and valuable. So the next time gossip drifts your way and you're tempted to react, remember this: silence isn't weakness, and it isn't approval. It's a choice to rise above, a choice to protect your character in moments when it would be easy to trade it for temporary amusement. Because words have weight, but sometimes it's the silence that speaks volumes about who you truly are. Number 5. When someone is venting or in pain, she sat at the kitchen table, eyes swollen from crying, voice trembling as she tried to speak through the wave of emotion. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she said, her hands gripping a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Across from her sat a friend, someone who cared deeply, who wanted to help. But instead of jumping in with advice or reassurance, he simply stayed still. He didn't reach for easy words like "it's going to be okay," or "you're stronger than this." He didn't try to fix anything. He just looked at her with soft eyes, nodded occasionally, and let the silence hold her pain. Minutes passed like that, her words flowing in bursts, sometimes tripping over sobs, sometimes tapering into silence. And in those quiet moments between her sentences, what she felt wasn't abandonment, it was safety. She wasn't being analyzed, interrupted, or coached. She was simply being heard. That kind of silence, it's not passive, it's powerful. It's what therapists call active silence. The kind that creates space, invites more truth, and signals, "I'm here with you fully." In our urge to help those we love, we often rush to speak. We offer solutions, silver linings, stories of how we've been through something similar. We do it with good intentions, hoping to ease their pain. But more often than not, those words, however well-meaning, create distance. They shift the focus away from the person who's hurting and toward the one who's trying to solve the problem. And sometimes, what people need most is not an answer, but a witness. As Carl Rogers, the founder of humanistic psychology, once said, When someone really hears you without passing judgment on you, without trying to take responsibility for you, without trying to mold you, it feels damn good. That's the essence of therapeutic silence. It's not about saying the perfect thing. It's about being the perfect presence. Think about the last time you were in pain. Real, soul-level pain. Did solutions help in that moment? Did logical explanations make the hurt go away? Or did you just want someone to sit with you in it? Not to fix, not to flee, but to stay. That's what silence does when it's grounded in empathy. It tells the person, I'm not afraid of your sadness. I'm not uncomfortable with your truth. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. And that unspoken message can be more healing than any words we scramble to find. In therapy, counselors are trained not to rush to fill every silence. They understand that people need room to process their own thoughts, to sit with their emotions, without someone jumping in to label or redirect them. That space, that sacred, patient quiet, is often where the real breakthroughs happen. It's where someone finds clarity, not because it was handed to them, but because they were given the time and safety to uncover it themselves. In everyday life, you don't need a degree in counseling to offer that kind of presence. You just need to resist the urge to perform, to prove your care through speech. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to say nothing, to nod, to breathe with them, to make eye contact that says, I see you, and I'm not leaving. Because silence, when offered with intention and attention, becomes a bridge. It connects hearts without noise, without instruction. It allows the person in pain to feel truly accompanied, not pushed, not advised, just met. So the next time someone opens up to you, whether they're grieving, angry, confused, or heartbroken, consider this. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to fix what's broken. What they need most may simply be your quiet presence. In a world that rushes to speak, be the person who knows when not to. Because sometimes the deepest comfort comes not from what you say, but from the silent strength of your being there. The art of strategic silence. Think back to that opening moment. The one where a careless word shattered trust, and another where quiet restraint preserved dignity. Those aren't isolated examples. They're proof of a deeper truth. Silence isn't the absence of strength. It is strength. We live in a world that glorifies expression, that rewards the loudest voice in the room. But there's another kind of power, a quieter one, that belongs to those who know when not to speak. Throughout this journey, we've seen silence disarm insults, win negotiations, prevent emotional regret, guard reputations, and offer profound comfort to those in pain. Strategic silence isn't passive, it's active, intentional, and deeply wise. It's not about holding your tongue out of fear. It's about choosing your moments with clarity. In my own life, I can trace some of my most important decisions back to moments of silence, where I held back when I could have exploded, when I listened instead of rushing to fix, when I let space do the work that words couldn't. And in each of those cases, silence didn't weaken the bond or the outcome. It strengthened it. So here's your challenge. Start noticing the moments where silence speaks louder than words. Watch how it shifts the energy in a room, how it protects you, empowers you, and sometimes even heals someone else. Practice the art of strategic silence, not to avoid life, but to move through it with more power and grace. As the writer Marcus Tullius Cicero once said, silence is one of the great arts of conversation. Learn that art, and you'll discover that some of your most powerful messages are the ones you never say out loud.